yes, I'll do it. This is exactly what I would yell back. Is this working? Okay. This is what I would yell back at my mother when she'd ask me to clean my room for the 15th time when I was possibly 15 years old. And to that, she'd reply, don't tell me, show me. You see, she wanted my actions to speak louder than my words. Also, when I was 15, I was crazy about animals and I wanted to be a veterinarian, along with a lot of other professions, which included a police officer, a pilot, a chef, an artist. I was strong on my science, but I was very confused back then. And my family of human doctors convinced me that the human race needs you more than the animal race. And I didn't want to pursue an MBBS, so I picked my next love in life, which was food. And so I went on to eventually do my Masters of Medical Science in dietetics from the UK. I finished that, and then I decided to come back. I moved from Mumbai to Pune, and I thought I'd spend a year with my parents and get a little bit of work experience before I head back out for further studies. So during this time, I kept finding animals on the streets of Pune. They were hurt and injured, they were diseased, suffering, dying right in front of my eyes. I would make calls to every NGO or governmental organization to come and help that animal out, but without any success. And that made me really, really angry. I was upset. And I was like, why is nobody coming to help an animal in need? Just because it can't speak, is its pain and suffering not real? And I found myself complaining, and I just found myself in a loop of questions. And I could have gone on complaining and pointing fingers at others. So I just, decided to stop and said, I'm going to stop complaining now, and I'm just going to do it myself. So now, for being a person who couldn't clean my room when I was 15 years old, I had suddenly decided I'm going to work with animals and I'm going to start an NGO. So, of course, when I told my family and my parents, they were completely shocked. And I remember my father's first words to me were, Neha, beggars don't do charity. So I said, well, I can't sit at an office desk job from 9 to 5 and work with animals and do the kind of work I want to do. So I was 23 years old back then. I calculated the risk. I said, what's the worst that can happen? Like, worst case scenario, like if I fail, maybe I'll just have to, give this a few years and take a job up in my late 20s. So, so that's what I thought. But you see, and that's the magic of taking a risk, right? Like especially when you've committed to it, you fought for that decision, and you've, decided that this is what I'm going to fight for, I've made this decision, and this is what I want to do ahead. You don't want to fail, you want to succeed. So I went on, I volunteered with a veterinarian who very graciously taught me everything I needed to know to rescue an animal, and went ahead, registered the organization, and started helping one animal at a time, and ever since then, I've never looked back. So over the years, I've rescued hundreds of animals myself, and through the work of the organization, probably tens of thousands more. And so there are a couple of things that happen when you do the action of rescuing an animal. So one of the things is impacting the community. It's never just one animal that you rescue. So you see, it's not uncommon for us to see an animal languishing in pain on the side of the road and people just passing by. It often happens that when we go for a rescue, suddenly there is a crowd of people and they are wondering, what are you doing and why are you going to such lengths to help an animal in need? And I actually believe that how we interact with people during the rescue or release of an animal really not just changes the life of that animal, of course, but it impacts the future of so many animals and changes the sensitization levels of the community. So you may be wondering how so? How does it change the community's sensitivity levels? So you see, we are so used to seeing suffering in our country. Whether it is children, women, elderly, people in general, we have just accepted with time that this is how things are in our country, And these are living conditions, whether it's a lack of health care or education, empathy, or any action towards domestic violence or child or women abuse. We just think that this is how things are, and a lot of people believe they can't do anything on their own. So people often walk past this and do nothing in these situations because they believe they can't do anything by themselves. So I know that I can't solve every problem in this country, and thankfully there are many people who are working to ease the suffering of people. But there are very few comparatively who are very systematically and dedicatedly working towards helping animals. And you see, when people witness action, sometimes they realize, okay, I can at least do something to make a difference in an animal's life. And maybe next time they'd pick up the phone and call you if there is an animal that needs help. So when this happens, generally when people become sensitive to animals that cannot speak, I believe there are higher chances that they will probably try to help a woman or child in the future who actually can voice its pain. The other thing that happens is, besides impacting the community sensitivity levels, it's one thing. But animals that get reported to us, they come to us in a very bad condition. Often they're very critical and they're probably breathing their last already. And we know that we're all going to die one day. The best I believe we can do is provide them dignity and ease their suffering maybe just a little bit before death arrives. So I have practically seen life and death on a daily basis for the last 15 years, and I genuinely believe that the outcome, whether life or death, is very secondary. What matters is that intent, that action to help it to ease its suffering and pain before it passes away. So speaking of good outcomes and making a difference, has anyone here heard of the Good Samaritan story? So the Good Samaritan is actually a really good Samaritan. There was a dark, dangerous, the story goes like this. There was a dark, dangerous road that travelers would take, and they would get attacked or mugged by dacoits and smugglers. And there was this Good Samaritan who would go and help these injured animals. He would do this and have the courage to do this when no one else would. So what he did was truly noble. He dedicated his life to it. And just like the Good Samaritan, several people like me, other organizations, they rescue hurt and injured animals. And there is no taking away from the fact that when you respond to an animal in an emergency, it is an act of compassion and it is an act of kindness. Now you see, when your actions speak louder than your words and you are making a difference in an individual's life directly, it's a great feeling. And the more and more you continue doing it, you can go on feeling extremely content about it. Just like the Good Samaritan, right? It's a feeling you can live with. You can continue doing it till the day you die, or you can get drawn back to your question zero. And that is actually, are you tackling the problem at the root, or are you just responding to an emergency? And is that what you're going to continue to do forever? So you see, I used to think to myself, it's a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling to just continue being the Good Samaritan, But just imagine if the Good Samaritan went to the authorities and actually said, hey, here's the problem, here's the size of the problem, this is how many animals or how many humans I have rescued in the last so many years. If you as the authorities can probably install some lights on this dark road or have security patrol vehicles moving up and down, maybe you can reduce the number of humans getting injured or eliminate the problem completely. And imagine if this person was willing to work with the authorities to identify problem areas and help them out in any way possible. Now, wouldn't that be progressive and an attempt at solving the problem in itself? So you see, the problems we face are growing more and more complex every day. Pune district, the landscape that we predominantly work in, has changed greatly over the last decade. rapid urbanization, shifts in agricultural patterns, then climatic changes have led to a large number of wildlife that is coming in conflict with humans. Increasingly over time, these will continue to get reported to the helplines of our organization. So now I had spent days, weeks, years rescuing animals, and statistics were piling up. I should have ideally felt very mighty pleased about helping so many animals, but my conscience kept throwing questions and situations right back at me. So what was happening was more and more animals were coming into conflict with others, more street dogs, more and more pets getting abandoned, more domestic animals coming in conflict with wildlife and vice versa, more encroachment on each other's space, more wildlife getting injured, electrocuted, falling in wells. And then I kept thinking to myself, does anything that I'm doing making a difference? Or are we just, putting band-aids on deep wounds? And then, of course, the classic question, right? Like, why isn't our government doing anything about these issues that are not just affecting animals, but are affecting people too? So we've, been around for a decade, but I knew that our solutions could not stay the same. And so I too, like many of us, have we are smart enough to identify a problem, but that's just the first step. So we normally have this tendency to resort to the easy part first. We complain, we make claims, we become solely keyboard activists, and we state what the government or what anybody else besides us should be doing and is not doing. So I personally used to be mortified of working or approaching the government because, as popular opinion goes, they're difficult to work with. So I was basically back at square one, and I had once again reached a point where I was asking myself a question like, what am I going to do about this? Unless I cannot sit back and complain. So I was back to the same thing when I started. I said I cannot complain and about this unless I am willing to work with the government on creating implementable solutions that is going to prevent so many animals from coming into conflict in the first place. And so that's what I did. You see, the problems that our world faces are urgent and complicated, and to solve them, we have to match fresh thinking with bold action. And I decided to approach them with positivity. And today, we not only work with the government, but also with other NGOs, with businesses, and so many other different kinds of local groups. And together, we pioneer new and innovative ways to help all species flourish. It has not been easy working with the government. There have been challenges. Change is slow, change takes time. But ever since I took a step in that direction, every little change that happens, makes me realize that I'm one step closer to, achieving an outcome that is going to impact thousands and thousands of lives. So while making systemic changes is one thing, every animal we rescue, every single life matters to me. And whether it's, a house pet abandoned, whether it's a horse or a cow that's discarded, whether it's a bird entangled in manja, whether it's a leopard fallen down the well, or an animal that's met with a road accident, or even if we do something like reunite a wildcat kitten with its mother. So we are doing much more than saving a life by rescuing individual animals, individual wildlife, and reintroducing them back into the wild. We play a very important role in the conservation of each and every species. So on any given day, we have between 250 to 300 animals under treatment and rehabilitation at our center. We know that the animals we rescue are a fraction of the ones that live in distress, but what motivates me and everyone in my organization to go on is watching them get released back, giving them a second chance at life. They are free, they are back home. So I would like to conclude today by sharing a few lines from one of my favorite poems. It's one that continues to inspire me all the time. And so this one's called Invictus. I don't know how many people here have heard it. It's by a poet called William Ernest Henley. And this is one that focuses on the human spirit and the ability to overcome adversity. So it goes like this. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods there be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, or how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. The words of this poem are a rallying cry for those who find themselves in dark and trying situations, who have to dig deep and fight for their own lives, and in my case, to fight for the lives of animals. I believe that we are creating better outcomes for animals, for people, and places that we call home. If your actions don't live up to your words, you'll have nothing left to say. At the end of the day, you are what you do and not what you say you'll do. Thank you.